Commander Aria Lysander's brisk footsteps echoed through the wall as she walked down the hallway of the facility, her eyes scanning the multiple glass cubicles that stored different laboratory equipment. The staff, all wrapped in white lab coats, buzzing around with activity. She felt a nauseating pang in her gut as she walked past a testing room, a sickly lady screaming as she threw her guts up. Aria's jaw clenched as she turned away quickly and kept her head straight for the rest of her stride. Finally, she appeared in front of a door which had a name tag written on its post: Dr. Elias, head scientist. She inhaled deeply before folding her knuckles and tapping them against the wooden door. Unlike the rest of the workspace, his office was hidden behind a grey wall. Aria scoffed lightly at the irony.
"Come on in."
The voice was faint, muffled behind the door. Aria reached for the knob and twisted it, before pushing the door open and walking in. The office was well furnished, with a cozy red couch pushed to the wall, directly facing the door she had just walked through. On her right was a wooden bookshelf, spilling with educational books and research. Beside it was a metal drawer, its top bearing a silver tray which held a huge bottle of whiskey. She turned to her left to find him seated behind his desk, his smile faltering as his eyes met hers.
"Commander? Doctor? Well, I had imagined we would still have some time before our meeting today. I must have lost track of time at some point. I'm sure that's fine. We can go ahead since I'm here just in time."
He sighed before nodding.
"Well then, please take a seat."
Aria walked up to one of the armchairs and sat opposite him. They were dark red, just like his couch, blending nicely with his teal-painted walls and giving the office a dim aura. She sat on one chair, her eyes never leaving his.
"All right. So, what would you like to know?" "I already know everything I need to, Dr. Elias. I know that this correctional facility is a covert affiliate of FFHE. And I also know that for the past 3 years, you've been smuggling criminals serving life in other government-owned facilities to run diabolical and physiologically altering experiments."
His eyes widened as he looked up at her again.
"And lastly, I know that recently your mother organization approved the release of 4 of the inmates from their lab for testing under supervision. That went chaotic, and a lot of people got hurt, so they quickly captured them and sent them here while covering up your tracks."
He let out a gruff sigh as he sat up and swallowed.
"Well, Commander Lysander, I'm truly impressed by how you were able to read between the lines so well. But I'm pretty sure you didn't come here just to share the information you've learned with me." "Well, no. I came to ask you to stop this. You've already seen it yourselves. What you're doing here is insane. You can't control those creatures you've made, no matter what you try." "I'm not giving up on my life's work. Not when I've gotten this close. FFHE is backed up by the government, and all the reports of our research are used by the military."
Aria scoffed.
"You can throw your moral justification at me all you want. It doesn't change the fact that what you're doing is inhumane and needs to be stopped." "Well, I'm sorry if that's your take on this, but there's nothing I can do for you."
Aria inhaled deeply as she nodded.
"Well, I just wanted to see if I could reason with you at least before, I begin to push this legally. I hope you understand that this means you'd have a lot to lose."
His jaw clenched as his gaze darkened.
"I'll let my lawyer know that."
Dr. Elias chewed, reaching for the bridge of his glasses and sliding them up his face. Aria closed her eyes for a moment. bracing herself for the request that she was now about to make. A request that had burdened her ever since she saw the file on Ironclad. One of the inmates who had been brought into Ravencrest Corrections recently.
I would like to see one of the inmates. Sasha Volkov.
Dr. Elias peered at her from above his glasses for a moment, his wary gaze scanning her briefly before he returned his eyes to the documents in his hands.
I'm sorry, Commander. The inmates are only allowed to see family members for now. Security personnel are required to have warrants. She's my sister.
He paused, turning to her fully this time, with an amused gaze on his face. He tilted his head a bit.
Is that why you're so invested in making me stop working here? It's one of my reasons.
He sucked his teeth, his eyes glowing with wit.
Commander, you understand that you cannot be emotionally involved in your investigations? Exactly. And like I said, this was just a visit. Now, would you let me see my sister? I'm afraid I cannot make that happen. And why is that? Because the families of our inmates agree to sign an NDA when they agree to sell off their loved ones rather than watch them die. Somehow, Sasha knew about this and refused to provide any information on her family members. Without signing that contract, you have no access to her.
Usually, she would have raged, called bullshit, and stormed straight into their cell. But this time around, she was just glad that she had an excuse not to see her. She wasn't ready yet.
All right then.
A loud emergency siren shrieked through the halls as the lights dimmed and the red lights began to blare in spirals. Dr. Elias's eyebrows furrowed as he grabbed the landline on his table and yanked the phone to his ear.
Lamb, what's going on? All four of them?
He caught Aria's questioning gaze and averted her eyes quickly as he tried to lower his voice.
What wing did they go from? All right, I'll be right down there.
He ended the call before finally looking at Aria.
We're undergoing some research-related difficulties right now, and I advise that you evacuate the building whilst we take care of the issue. Don't give me that bullshit. They've escaped, haven't they?
She grabbed her things and rushed out of his office and straight to the cells. The iron cages rattled tremulously as the inmates pushed and slammed against it, each of them determined to break through. Their angry faces were terrifying under the eerie wash of red from the lights. Her eyes fell to the last floor of the cells, her eyes finding the source of their agitation, a giant hole in the wall. She pulled out her gun from its pocket on her waistband and ran back out. Dr. Elias and a group of other scientists marching toward her direction. He frowned as he saw her.
Mom, you're not meant to be here right now.
Aria locked her gaze with his as she pulled out her comms and slid it into her ear. Then, she began to walk away, heading out the same way she'd come in earlier.
This is Commander Lysander, calling for assistance from all troops around Lost Islands. There has been an outbreak at the corrections facility. Possible red-level threat. Over.
She repeated her message as she got into her car and slammed it into drive, following the entourage of black bulletproof vans that sped out through the gate. She pulled her mouthpiece close again.
Commander Lysander here. I'm in pursuit of the inmates, requesting immediate backup. My location status is open. Over.
She twisted her fingers on the leather steering wheel as she hit the gas, speeding and swerving past the line of black metal driving ahead of her. Finally, as she drove past the last of them, she could see another van just ahead, speeding through the freeway.
This is the commander. I have visuals on the inmates. How's that backup coming? Over.
The other end of the line cracked open as a thick, masculine voice tore through the static.
Commander, there was an interference in the facility. We've been struggling to reach you,
the man explained.
Well, you got me now, Timmy. What's the status?
We got Philly on your 20. Chopper coming from the south. ETA, 5 minutes.
5 minutes is a lot of time. I think they're heading for the docks. A ship must be waiting for them there. We've got to stop them before they get to it.
Another woman's voice came through the comms.
I'm on your 6, Chief. A bunch of black vans are in the way. All right, Seba, I'm glad you're here. Flattery? That vacation must have really taken a weight off your shoulders. Now tell me, why do we need to stop them before they get to the ship? Because I thought the right thing to do would be to wait for them at the docks. I've been researching FFHE ever since they took Sasha and her gang, the Psychos. Turns out, they run human enhancement experiments, and my sister and her gang were the only successful applicants. And now, they've teamed up with Sylvester Colan, a black market arms dealer, and they've created this group called the Deviants. I don't know what they're after, but we can't wait to find out. You mean we're chasing the Psychos? Those guys are supposed to be dead. They were charged for multiple crimes and murders. Well, I did say it's a possible code red threat.
The sound of helicopter blades slashing through the thick air above her made Aria look through the window of her car and glare upwards. She smiled as she made eye contact with one of the men on the chopper, who stood stationed with a sniper. He smiled back at her.
Nice of you to join us, Philly. Anytime, Commander. What's the game plan?
I'll need you to activate the drones so I can get a view of what we're working with.
Philly reached for a duffel bag stuffed under one of the chairs and pulled out a briefcase. He opened it to reveal a spherical crystal sitting in its groove. Beside it were buttons and levers. He looked for the power button and pushed it, then waited for the screen on the other end of the suitcase to turn on and boot. The system, chiming and whirring as it came to life. He punched in the passwords and hit the activate button. The crystal let out a luminous glow as it split into tiny series of rows and columns. Then, the cubes began to detach from each other, each of them built with a camera lens on the other end. He watched as they hovered into the sky, covering a wide space above Aria and the escapees as it followed them.
All right, drones activated. We have visuals.
All right, you'll be our eyes while we take them head on. Seba, are you with us? Right beside you, ma'am. All right, Philly, smoke 'em out.
The chopper increased its altitude as it flew over to the other side of the chase. The door slid open to reveal Philly again, the butt of a cigarette in his mouth, as he mounted the machine gun, spinning the barrels around. He aimed at the Psycho's van and began to shoot, his muscled arms shaking vigorously as the gun rocked thunderously from side to side. The van swerved and dodged, but it had already taken enough impact. Aria smiled as she watched the van come to a halt.
Brace yourself for contact, guys. If you have the shot, take it. What about Sasha chose this path herself? I will not let her continue to wreak havoc.
Aria got out of her car, leaving the door open as she crouched behind it. Her grip tightened on the gun in her hand. Seba got behind her door as well as they all waited in silence.
Anything, Timmy?
I'm not picking up any movement, but heat sensors suggest there are indeed 4 people in that van.
What the hell are they waiting for? Guys, we've got company. Aerial threat, 12 o'clock.
They all looked towards the direction to see a huge starship, its camouflage coming off and revealing the mass of metallic blue approaching them. Timmy gasped.
Bloody hell, it's the Blue Fly.
Who's that now?
Is the name of that ship. Possibly this galaxy's most advanced and weapons edition starship. Auctioned off to an anonymous buyer 3 years ago.
Why would the government auction something of such high military value?
It was auctioned on the black market.
Aria's eyes widened with stark realization.
They weren't going to the ship. The ship was coming to them.
Philly, you may have to return to base. The ship has an AI-controlled homing missile in its arsenal. You don't want to be spotted. Commander, we have to call off the attack.
Aria shook her head.
We can't let her escape. I know you want to take him down, Chief. But if that ship's as good as Timmy says it is, then the best move now is a safe retreat. Fine. But if we lose them now, we'll lose them forever.
Not to worry. I can use one of the drones as a tracker once the ship gets close enough.
All right, we're going to take Timmy's advice and get away from the ship's periphery. See you guys back at base.
The chopper began to turn back the way it came, speeding off. Seba got into her car and drove off as well. The vans from the correctional facility had begun to retreat when the ship finally got to them. Aria watched as it whirled and stopped just above the van. Bright light fell over the van as the belly of the ship slid open, and a holographic ladder slid down. The top vault entrance of the van pushed open, and she watched as they all got on the ladder. Sasha climbed last. Aria had the shot. She crouched in front of her door again and slid her arm through the window. Sasha turned to her immediately. Their eyes locked, and Aria froze on the spot. The holographic ladder began to retract automatically, dragging Sasha along with it. Aria's jaw clenched as she slammed her fist against the door. And we're going to pause this one right here. To learn more about this story arc, you'll need to wait for part 2, coming soon. Thanks again, everyone, and thank you for tuning in and watching another sci-fi horror story. This one had a little bit less horror, but there should be some more in part 2, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If you want to help the channel, please feel free to like this video. We really appreciate it. Please make sure to subscribe. We always love having more subscribers. And also, if you would like to learn about more content that's coming and be notified of such, then of course, hit the bell. Although I do like original stories like this, I also like ones that you've written. So if you have any short stories, kind of 2,500, 3,000 word story limit, then please send them through. The email is in the description of this video, so please feel free to do that. Just tell me how you would like to be credited, and also that you are giving me your permission to do so, and that it's not on YouTube anywhere else, or YouTube will ding me. With that, thank you very much, and I'll catch you in another sci-fi horror story very soon. Cheers.